Welcome back to another Call Center Helper webinar. My name is Andrew Freeman, and today we're talking all about tips for optimizing WFM in 2025. So, without further ado, let me introduce our panel once again today. Winita Kohli, kicking things off from Solid Rock Consulting. Winita, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. Finally, we've got you on board.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're a name that has been synonymous with WFM for quite a while now in the CX industry. Give our audience a little flavor as to what makes you the perfect co-host for today.
Because I am that WFM girl, I'm affectionately known as the contact center whisperer. I started off in the contact center. We're going to stop at 20 years because that's my business. I started off on the phones as an agent and have been in every facet of workforce management. So I do workforce not only for fun, but passion and purpose. So I'm looking forward to the talk today.
We're so happy to have you on board as well. And then rounding out our panel, we have Andrea Matsuda. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a year since we last had you on. It's great to have you back.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back.
So let's talk a little bit about your WFM past again, like you mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah, so I am over product marketing for the workforce management line of business at NICE. But before moving to the vendor side, I did spend most of my career in the contact center doing everything from outbound phone calls, chats, back office work, and every role in WFM. In fact, I actually got started in WFM because I was trying to network myself with the marketing team who sat right next to it. So fast forward a few years and now I'm doing marketing, but for the WFM business. So you can never, once you're in WFM, you never really leave. That's my belief.
Well, you've married the two together really nicely.
Absolutely. Job well done.
And then I am rounding out our panel today. Like I say, my name is Andrew Freeman. I host some of these webinars for CCH. I'm the digital content director here. A little bit of housekeeping to begin with. As always, with a call center helper webinar, we love an interactive audience. Please do get involved. You can do so by clicking on the chat icon at the bottom and then typing questions into the chat room. We love hearing your thoughts and tips. It's such an open discussion today. We're trying to put more of an emphasis on that communicative part with our audience, so please do get involved. We're not above bribing you as well, which I'll get onto in 2 slides' time. As always with Call Center Helper webinar, we do have the replay and slides available later this afternoon. You will receive an email from us later when they are available. But like I say, we're not above bribing you. We do have a gift card available for the best tip from our audience, so please do get involved. You can do so by going hashtag question or hashtag tip. Again, with some of the presentations we've got coming up today, we do have a little bit of collaborative elements in there, so please do get involved. And I think without further ado, Juanita, that leads me to you. So you're up. I can't wait to see what you've got coming up here. And I say that as someone who doesn't know what's coming up as well. So I think it's going to be great for our audience. Feel free to take share your screen and take us away.
Awesome. Awesome. Give me 1 second. I am so excited about presenting today. Let me know when you all can see my screen.
We've got your video feeds at the moment.
My video feeds. Okay.
Here's a lovely look into the background behind how you set up your camera, though. So I do appreciate that with our audience. But again, I
Let
think with a topic like today as well, it's going to be so good just to get, again, what we're setting ourselves up for, and again, see how you can move that through in 2025.
What about now? Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Amazing. All right. So we are talking about the way, okay, so just a FYI, okay. Xander already told you this, okay. We are having an engaging conversation. So I will pull on you all to engage in the chat. All right. And I'll be flipping back and forth looking at the chat. So yeah, that's a thing. Okay. So we're going to be talking about optimizing WFM. Okay, just a little bit about myself. You already heard me mention that I am affectionately known as the contact center whisperer, and I'm the CEO and founder of Solid Rock Consulting. I am also the author of actually my third book, but my second bestseller, which is WFM Go Beyond. Well, each of you will be getting a copy of if you hang around to the end. A little known fact about me, I am Mrs. Corporate America 2022. I started off in the contact center as an agent on the phones, and I'm going to date myself so bad right now. So don't judge me. All right. If you know, you know. But I started off on the phones as an agent and I picked up a Blue Pumpkin book, which it was really the user manual. Okay. And I was so intrigued with, oh, this is how the contact center finds out how much volume we're going to get and how we get our schedules and all of the different things. And I was like, I'm gonna take over the world, So I had this master plan to, like learn workforce management and all the different things, and so that has taken me, again, like I said, I'll stop at 20 years, but that has taken me through organizations like your United Healthcares, your Liberty Medicals, your Walgreens, organizations that ones you don't know, helping them to build and optimize their workforce processes, teams, and implement solutions. So again, super, super excited to be talking to you all today. But before we hop in, okay, I want to know from you, okay, what could be more important? Is there anything more important to your organization, to a business, than their ability to obtain a customer and their ability to obtain the resource to serve that customer? Just sound off in the chat if there's anything that you can think of in your organization that's more important than their ability to obtain the customer and their ability to serve that customer, right? Their ability to obtain the resources to serve that customer. What is there anything? I always like to ask this question because I'm really interested in hearing what you all have to say. Usually I hear things like profitability. Okay, I see you, Keith. Yep, make it a profit. Retain the customer, but also keep trust, make a profit. I see you, Keith. Accessibility. Samantha, retain the customer. Curve. I see cost management. Okay. Unfortunately, it's a savings money above all else. Courtney, I see you. All right. I see you. I see y'all in the chat. All right. All right. Now, okay. Give me a 1 in the chat. Okay. If you are in workforce management, if you're in workforce management, so you're a director, forecaster, scheduler, intraday person, give me a 1 in the chat. And if you're on the operations side of the house, right? So you're operations director of contact center, somewhere on the operations side, give me a 2 in the chat. Give me a 2 in the chat. Give me a 2. All right, Jade, I see you. Kendra, I see you. All right. All right. I see y'all. I see y'all. All right. So we got some 1s and 2s and everybody else. Okay. Okay, Kendra, I see you say you do both. All right. I'm not mad at you. All right. I'm not mad at you. All right. So, all right. So everybody else, give me a 3 in the chat or just tell me what role you are. This just kind of helps me understand who I'm talking to and help you to help me connect the dots when I'm talking through what I'm talking to through. So everybody else, if you're not WFM and you've given me a 1 and you're not operations, you've given me a 2, anybody else just put a 3 in the chat or give me a title. All right. Thank y'all so much for participating with my shenanigans. Okay. So the question is, what could be more important? That's what we're talking about. And we're really talking about optimizing workforce management. There is, okay, don't fight me, y'all. Okay, for y'all that put profitability and agent experience and all these things, all right, don't fight me. But there's absolutely nothing more important, and I mean absolutely nothing more important to your organization than the ability to first, right, get the customer, and second, be able to serve that customer. When we think about profits, right, what are we profiting on if we don't have a customer, right? If we don't have a product or service that we're selling to a customer, we don't even have an opportunity for profit, right? And if I don't have the resource to serve that customer, right, then they won't be a customer for long, right? So even if I can get customers because we're just amazing for whatever reason, right? We got the magic customer sauce and sprinkle dust, fairy dust. If I can't serve that customer, eventually that customer is going to be looking elsewhere. And so to an organization, if we boil it all the way down to the brass tacks of things, right, all the way down to the most basic level, every single organization, your organization, my organization, every organization that exists are focused on these two things. I have to obtain customers, okay? And I have to have the resource to serve those customers. All right. And then as a byproduct of that, right, we're thinking about I have to do so at a profit, right? Because otherwise, then why are we here, right? But the two things that runs through the thread, a constant thread in every single organization that is on the face of this earth, right? On the face of this planet is I have to get customers and I have to have the ability to serve those customers. Yes, give me a yes in the chat, right? Give me a yes in the chat if you can rock with that. Right. If you can rock with that, and I'm not sensitive. I was raised with all boys. I tell people that all the time. I have 3 brothers and I was raised with all boys. So I'm a little, I could take a little feedback and a little disagreement. But if you can rock with that, if you can get with that, right, that at your organization, right, regardless of what we do in the organization as WFM leaders and as operations leaders, that organization, the executive leadership is constantly thinking about how do I get more market share and how do I do so? How do I serve that customer? And so then the challenge then becomes for your organization. I promise you I'm going somewhere. The challenge then becomes for an organization that customers, when they have this demand, right, they get these customers, that these customers expect fast and seamless experiences. They actually want what they paid for. Imagine that. God daggone, customers actually wanting what they paid for. They actually want to get service when they buy something from the organization, right? So customers expect this fast and seamless experience. And then now the people who are serving the customers, they expect to have fair and equitable work environments. They expect to be onboarded. They expect support, right? And then you have these executives, right, that are expecting profitability and efficiency and customer loyalty, right? And so what happens is when these three converge or when these needs are not met, we have a result of a bad customer experience. Employees are leaving left and right. Our resources are, we have high attrition, and then we begin to lose revenue. So this is the challenge that every organization, regardless of industry and vertical, they face. Okay. And so the solution to those problems are having a strong workforce strategy. Okay. Because a strong workforce strategy is going to balance all three of these. They balance your employee experience, they balance your customer experience, and they balance profitability. Without workforce, right? Without a workforce strategy, you end up with overstaffing and high cost, understaffing, which leads to burnout and or no strategy at all. You just kind of willy-nilly coming in, just you get a schedule, or you get a forecast, and I think we're going to do this today, right? And so workforce, what I want you to leave with here today is mastering workforce and optimizing workforce is really that bridge between inefficiency and operational efficiency and effectiveness by focusing on workforce management and optimizing your workforce management strategy. Notice I'm saying having a workforce management strategy, right? This bridges the gap between all three. It touches all three. So as a workforce management leader, practitioner, right, enthusiast, right, as this individual, you are super important and critical to the organization obtaining customers and the resources serving the customers. Y'all with me? Y'all still with me? Tell me if you're still with me, give me a yes in the chat or put preach in the chat if I'm speaking to you. All right. If I'm speaking to you, just give me a yes in the chat. Like, I gotta preach. Okay, I gotta preach from Deborah. I gotta preach from Jennifer. All right. So y'all with me. Okay, y'all still with me. All right, I'm almost done. So this is the reason that this is so important is because many times as WFM leaders, practitioners, enthusiasts, we get caught up on the tactical side of workforce management, which I'll talk about here shortly. But workforce management at its very nitty gritty, right, is simply about supply and demand. Every organization produces their customers produce a demand for their product and or service. And then the business has to find out, how do I align my resources to meet that demand? right? And so many times I'm guilty of this, right? I used to get asked, what do you do? Right. And I was like, well, forecast for, and I create this, like it was this long thing. And so now, I'm just like, I'm in supply and demand, right? I help organizations align their resources with their customer demand. And people are like, oh, that makes sense, right? And so again, many times workforce practitioners, enthusiasts, leaders, we get focused on the tactical, which is very much so important, right? We have to do the tactics. We have to manage our data, look at our historical data. We have to do forecasting. We have to do scheduling. We have to do intraday. But those are tactics that allow us to do what the business is actually really after, right? Making sure we obtain customers and have a great customer experience, making sure that we have the resources to serve those customers, and we do so profitably, right? And so workforce management sits right in the middle of that, and that is strategic. And so I want you to begin today. If you've never thought about it this way, I want you to begin to really think about you, right? I know you came here to talk about tips and optimizing workforce management, but I want you to begin to think about you and your role in the organization and how important you are. I know we're in a phase and we're in an age where AI. You can't even have a conversation without talking about AI. And I'm a techie girl. Like I love me some AI. AI is a fifth member of my team. Okay. But listen, I want you to begin to really hone in on how important you are and how important your strategy that you begin to come up with touches these three areas. Because when you do, you will begin to transform your organization. So I want to talk to you about 3 tips, okay, that will help you begin to think about what I like to call the ABCs of business. Somebody put ABC in the chat. These are the ABCs of business, okay? ABCs, okay? Somebody put that in the chat. Come on. I see you. I see y'all. ABCs of business. All right. Y'all gonna get me excited here in a second. All right. So the ABCs, this is the agent experience. This is one of the tips that will help you transform agent experience. First, doing a skill and agent profile analysis. So doing a skill audit and an agent profile analysis. So many times I go into organizations and they're hitting service level very inconsistently, or they haven't hit it in forever. It's like, it's like a wish list item. It's not like this is something we actually have to do, right? And so one of the things that we do is we kind of start to look at the agent profiles and start to say, okay, well, first of all, you got this is a number my grandmother used to say. I still don't know what number this is. I just know it's a big number, but you got 11 million skills and you trying to figure out, right, why agents are burnt out or why your transfers are so high, right? Because you got 11 million skills attached to this agent profile and they aren't trained, or they were trained on it, but it's been 30 years since they took a call in that particular queue. And so they're not efficient in that skill. And so they're transferring, or your AHT, your average handle time is super long or exaggerated, when if you would do a skill audit, right, and clean up and condense your skills where you're available to do so, and then have agent skill profiles that match what the actual routing logic as well as the agent's profile is, you would see a couple things, right? You would see average handle times tend to decrease. You would see transfers and first contact resolution usually goes up, right? So this is one of the tips that if you haven't done this in the recent 6 months, okay, then I would highly recommend that you do a skill audit. Do you need those 5,000 skills? Right, like in real life, right? And then are some of those ghost or dormant skills on agents' profiles that those calls are trickling in here and there and causing frustration? I liken it to this. This is how I liken this. Okay. This is almost equivalent to you going into a mass supermarket here in Florida, here in the States, right? We have Walmart right? And so Walmart sell everything. Somebody say sell everything. They sell everything. You can get caskets from Walmart. You can get fruit from Walmart. You can go to the pharmacy in Walmart. You can get clothes in Walmart. You can get your tires changed in Walmart. I mean, when you go to Walmart, you can literally get anything. Okay. So how I liken this is, if you were to go into Walmart, do I want the person that's changing my tires filling my prescription? How many, if y'all do, just say yes in the chat. If you don't, say no in the chat. Do you want the person who changing your tires and doing your oil change, filling your prescription in the pharmacy department? No, I ain't think so. I ain't think me. I don't. Okay. Okay. And so when we have that, but we do that in the contact center, right? We'll have somebody with a billing skill and somebody with a technical skill. And it's like, that don't even go together. That's why your transfer is so high, right? I'm gonna move on. I think y'all get it, right? So second tip, all right. Second tip is an interval analysis, and this has to do with business experience. So the first had to do with agent experience. Second has to do with business experience. These again are my ABCs. A, agent experience. B, business experience. And this is performing an interval analysis. And this is where you start to look at where your volume trends in, so that you can begin to make sure that you actually have the right people in the right place at the right time. You are probably, I go into organizations where they're saying, oh, well, I'm going to offer 8 to 5, or I'm going to offer 9 to 6. I'm like, how did you come up with that schedule? Oh, well, it's because it's what we always do. And you always don't make service level too, right? Okay, so we might want to start thinking about making some changes, right? Because what you've always done is going to keep you where you've always been. And we want transformation. Yes, yes. All right. So interval analysis allows us to begin to look at where our volume actually trends in and get really creative with offering split shifts, stair step shifts, schedules, right? These different types of schedules. And every organization always says, well, I can't do that, until they do it and they see the efficiency gains that they get from it. So this is the next, right, is the interval analysis. And many times you have to build a business case around offering very unique and creative shifts when you've never done it that way. But this interval analysis will allow you to arm you with the information you need to say, hey, you see how we peak right here and then we go drastically back down? That's not a schedule that's appropriate for a straight 8 to 5, right? I need people right here, not right here. Okay. Last tip, and I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, okay, is WFM transformation tip 3, which is the C, customer experience. Somebody say customer experience, okay? And now this is your Q analysis. Your Q analysis tells you where, not in which intervals, but which cues of your overall volume you should be looking to have more efficiencies in, and which cues make up your total volume. So if you have, let's say, 10 cues, many times when we do a Q analysis for an organization, we say, hey, tell us what you think your top 3 cues are. And they tell us, oh, it's this, this, this. And they always either one are completely wrong, like the 3 cues are not the ones, right? But the squeaky wheel, right, gets the oil. So it's usually the cue that is the most problematic, that they think is the highest volume cue, when it's really not. It just has a lot of issues with it, right? So they either completely get it wrong and it's not in their top 3 at all, or it's out of order, right? Like the one that they thought was 1 is really the third contributing cue. And the reason that this is really important that you understand this is because this is where you're going to start to, now that we're talking about AI and automation and workflows and process, these are the cues that you want to say, okay, these 3 cues or 4 cues or whatever the top ones are, makes up 80% of my demand, right? And so these are the ones that I want to really put a high, not that you don't focus on the other ones, right? But these are the ones that I really want to lean into and understand, how do I improve the workflow? How do I improve the customer experience? Why are they having to call me in the first place? How do I implement AI in some of these situations? How do I create a better customer experience? Do I have AI in the places I shouldn't have AI on this customer journey? Right. And so these are the top 3 tips that I would recommend for you in 2025 as you are moving from being a tactical leader to a transformative leader that's really impacting the organization. So key points that I'm going to leave you with, okay, are yes, the fundamentals and the tactics are absolutely important. They're critical. You must do them. So I don't want y'all leaving this webinar and be like, Juanita told us we shouldn't forecast and schedule and do. I didn't say that. And if you say I said that, everybody gonna know that's not true. Okay. Right? That's not what I said. The fundamentals are key, is important, but we must go beyond, okay, to be strategic advisors to the business. Skill analysis, tip 1, is going to ensure that we have the best resources paired with the right customer need. Interval analysis, okay, is going to ensure we optimize business experiences and reduce that idle time. And the Q analysis is going to make sure that customers are routed appropriately. We improve first contact resolution. And again, remember that your job, whether you're on the WFM side, whether you are on the operations side, whether you are in any role in your organization, it's not to just forecast and schedule or do the tactical part of your role. It's to help the organization transform, and that you are being a trusted business advisor to your organization. So that is my time. I am going to yield it now, but I told you you all get this free gift, which is my latest book, WFM Go Beyond, where I dive into all of this even more and some real juicy stories of WFM times, my time in the field and my time still in the field. So if you want to grab a copy, you do have to cover shipping, but the book is completely free, and we ship worldwide. That is a tongue twister. But if you want a copy of the book, just scan the QR code and it is all yours. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I hope that this was helpful. I'm going to hand it over to Andrea.
Sorry, it's me that's coming in first, Juanita. If I just replace current share there. Before we get into Andrew's presentation, we'll do a quick Q&A with the audience. First off, Juanita, thank you so much for sharing those points. I think we in the CX industry do love a good acronym, and I will remember your ABCs. Fair enough. You also hold the medal. No one else has ever been able to get our audience to say preach quite as many times as you have. That's a first for me. I didn't think we'd cross off that particular bingo card today, but you've managed to do it. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So let's crack on with some of these Q&As we've got coming in here. So here's one that comes in. How can you make workforce management a competitive advantage? Juanita, this comes back to your earlier point, right, about marrying the tactics to the strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an amazing question. How do you make workforce management a competitive advantage? And that's why, I led the talk the way I led the talk with the question. What is the number one thing, right? Every organization is focusing on. They have to get customers and they have to serve that customer. And so if you really focus on workforce management beyond the tactics of, I have to create a forecast and a schedule and this, but you really understand, when I improve forecast accuracy, or when I create these schedules and I do this interval analysis, or I do this Q analysis, or I do what the tactical thing is for this goal. Workforce is no longer a tactic. It is a strategic advisor to the business to tell them, you can now launch this new line of business. And when you launch this new line of business, this is how you need to staff it. This is how you need to do X, Y, and Z. Or, you were thinking about implementing AI? Okay, great. So if you implement AI here, then you're going to shave off handle time here, but you're going to increase handle time here. So we need to really have wraparound services around this particular thing to do X, Y, and Z. Now workforce is no longer the people that come after the fact, right? Workforce is always people that come after the fact. By the way, workforce, we're standing up a new line of business. How many people we need? It's like, well, y'all should have came and asked that before you decided to stand up the new business, huh? Like that was something you should have asked ahead of time, right? So when you begin to partner though with the business that way, and you become that trusted advisor, that's your competitive advantage.
No, I think that's completely fair. And I think, like I say, a lot of what you were saying in your presentation and this question as well almost comes back to culture, but also how you almost translate WFM speak into a language that C-suite and the wider business understand. I mean, Andrea, let's cover it from your perspective. You work for one of the largest companies in the CX space. You surely see a lot of this, like good examples from customers, how they've managed to sort of put WFM on a platform with a wider contact center.
Yeah, and we actually, I want to piggyback off what Nita said about AI. We actually got this question a few times fairly recently in a couple of internal webinars. We're saying, well, we're introducing, all these customers are introducing AI. Like, do we even need WFM if everything's going to be AI? And, our answer is like, yes, even more so. You need WFM to show how effective your AI strategy is. So, WFM is really the baseline. If anyone knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I say WFM is the end period. Like, you need your staffing to be right. And then after that, then you can work on how proficient are your agents, how good is the quality. But first you need the right people scheduled at the right time and place. So that's critical.
If I didn't already know you did a business or marketing degree, bringing up Maslow's hierarchy of needs to prove that to you. So well done. You've proven your credentials there. Here's another one come in. So, what does a well-managed workforce mean? I mean, this is so subjective, but Andrea, let's start with you here very briefly, because I know we've got so many questions coming in and we're almost pushed for time here. As simply as you can, how would you suggest?
Yeah, the right people at the right time, being efficient. We need to mention, making sure the skill sets are appropriately adequate. What you don't want is to play a game of whack-a-mole and just move your resources around day in and day out. It's not, for one, you're not being strategic, but you're also going to burn your employees out.
100%. I think we need to your tip one there, where we're talking about skills audits within the contact center as well. I mean, you used the whack-a-mole analogy yesterday when we were talking about our rehearsal. It's yes, you do need to do those audits, but you need to do them in the right way.
Absolutely, absolutely. People, you can't treat it like, so I'll go in organizations and ask, hey, when was the last time you did a skill audit? And they'll say, oh, I did it, 6 months ago. Okay, tell me what that looked like. And they're like, oh, well, I checked to see if all the skills were still active. Like, okay, that's a great start. I'm glad you even did that, but we gotta go a step deeper.
I think so, 100%. Let's have a quick look at one that's coming from our audience today. This is Jens. How much skills can any agent maximum take on average? Right.
Oh,
So it's a bit like how long is a piece of string, right? Let's assume an idyllic contact center of a nondescript vertical. For the sake of argument, let's assume they're not heavily reliant on compliance or regulation. How would
yeah.
you go about answering this? Juanita, take us away.
That's a good question because like if you are, it depends on what the skill is, right? Like, so if you're in a tech based organization and they're providing tech support, right? If this is a product based vertical, then how much experience do they need for that particular,
Hmm.
that call type that they're handling, right? So I don't think it's more so what the maximum is. I think it is more so a question of like what is the complexity of the call, how much training do they need, context switching, how often are they context switching between one talk to the next, and
Hmm.
how similar are the skills. If all the skills are very similar, right? And the skill set and the call type is very much so the same. I would say from a forecasting perspective, you will want to keep this under 10 skills on a person's profile, because otherwise you begin to start to dilute, the forecasting accuracy. But you could have, like my grandmother used to say, 50, 11 million skills if it's the same type of call, but you have skills for the purpose of like segmenting and reporting and all of those different things, right? Which is not really the best use of skills, but it's not necessarily the amount of skills. It's about the complexity and difference between the call type. Hopefully that answered your question.
No, 100%. I think as well, it comes down to you've got to think about the WFM professional in this situation as well, right? If you're doing that many skills on a single agent, think about the routing system you have to put in place for that.
Mhm.
It becomes a complete mess. And I mean, ultimately, I think this boils down to using your data in the right way to know not only the employees within that from the WFM perspective, but also the customers as well. So, Andrea, I think that sets you up so nicely to go into what I know you're going to be presenting today. So, if I quickly flip ahead, before we launch into your presentation, a reminder to our audience, we will get through to your questions and tips as they're coming in. We will continue after Andrea's presentation. We've got so many coming up. Please do get involved in the chat and make sure you're setting the chat to everyone, because I have been told some of them have just been going to our hosts. So they will appear on the slides, but do be aware. Andrea, before we crack on with yours, I've got a quick poll to launch for the audience. Let me just launch this now and pop it on screen. So, are you increasing your digital channels? Like we just said, there's increasing complexity within WFM these days. The omni-channel approach is quite out. The term omni-channel could be a little bit outdated these days. Opti-channel, I've heard these from certain presentations. Andrea, what do you expect to see from the audience?
Well, I expect to see yes a lot, but I guess we'll see. I'll be surprised if there's a lot of no's.
I mean, not to spoil anything for you, but there's barely any no's. The vast majority saying yes, and I say, well, let's end that poll there. Yeah, like I say, the vast majority of the audience are about what's that, 70 odd percent said either yes on there. So that sets us up quite nicely for what you're about to launch into. So please take over the screen and let's crack on with what you've got to show our audience today.
Yes, and just let me know when you can see my screen.
Absolutely.
All right. It says it's sharing on my end.
I can see it absolutely fine. Crack on.
Perfect. All right. So the reason why we asked that, and I'm glad everyone participated, is because every year, I shouldn't say every year, but the past like 5 years, we've done a survey, a global survey across the EMEA and North America regions in partnership with Simpler Media Group. And we always like to see the current trends in the contact center, particularly WFM trends. And what we saw, and we can now that we've done so many, we can kind of do side by side comparisons. And we can see in 2023, when we asked this, 56% of the contact center said that they had increased their digital channels. So they introduced chat, they introduced email, they introduced socials, new types of socials. They introduced web forums, like community forums is one that came up that kind of surprised me. Video conferencing came up. And then in 2024, at the end of the year, that increased where they're saying they've actually increased it by 60%. So more and more contact centers are increasing digital channels. There's the full modern trend survey there if you want to scan the QR code. It's on our website, and there's a lot of good findings there. But when we introduced digital channels, what we found also in that same survey is that there are some challenges. So one thing, the great thing is that they do seem to have customer satisfaction scores have increased. So we're meeting our customers where they want to be. So we've got all these different customers that want to use different preferences to communicate. I am the worst customer because I do self-service, I chat, and I call and I wait to see whoever gives me the fastest answer. But you're meeting your customer where they want to be. So we're seeing higher CSAT scores, but we're also seeing, you can see the lowest metric there is that the employee satisfaction with the company has decreased. So the more digital channels have been introduced, we're seeing an impact to the employee experience. And that comes back to kind of what Juanita mentioned earlier about your skill profile. So making sure that your agents are not being asked to have all of these skills, but also are they being asked to switch between channels all day long? Do you have a dedicated chat team? Do you have a dedicated back office team? And if you are moving resources around, make sure that you got the profile that wants to be moved around, making sure that they're liking to break up their day and it's done in a way that's strategic. And you're not just again playing whack-a-mole, moving your resources down because it can impact the agent experience, especially if they're held to KPIs. If you're suddenly moving someone from phones, now they're not going to hit their KPI targets on phones to chat. They're consistently not going to hit their targets. So making sure that you do have that buy-in and that right profile instead of just giving everyone blanketed skills or giving everyone blanketed, channel adoption, making sure that the proficiency level is correct for them. And then the other slides here are just the accuracy by forecast. So kind of seeing how accurate are we when we forecast across different channels. Which brings me to my next topic, which is my first tip, which is consider the challenges that you can have with long asynchronous interactions or even intermittent interactions. So in this case, we've got a simple email. For the sake of this, I'll say I'm the employee. The customer emails me. I grab the email. I'm on the email team. I have some follow-up questions for the customer. So it's going to take me about 5 minutes to type up my response to get clarity. There's a 60-minute delay. We're going to assume that I'm not just sitting there waiting for that response. As someone who was once on the email team, that would not have been permitted. You have to grab the next email in queue. And then finally, that email comes back into my queue. I read it, and I'm able to resolve the issue. My question to all of you, and please put it in the chat, is was this business problem one contact that lasted 10 minutes, one contact that lasted 70 minutes, or is it three separate contacts? And then from there, when would you report this information? Would you report it when the contact started, when the contact ended, or during each interval when the work was performed? And I will say, every time I ask this question, the answers are always all over the board. I've never had everyone just say one thing. And let me see the chat.
You got a couple of threes from my side in there.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Couple threes. Great. Three separate contexts. Okay. You guys are seeing some of the problems that this can definitely solve. So traditionally, WFM has been done on the when contact ended paradigm. So in this case, that means we're going to report on when the contact interaction actually ends. This works extremely well, especially when you think of like a phone call when it starts and completes in the same planning interval. Think about those quick calls. Where it can create staffing problems is when it spans multiple intervals or when it's intermittent. So thinking about something like a social chat that you have in and out of focus time. So in this case, I'm just going to go through a really quick example for the sake of simplicity. So this case, we've got a contact that comes in at 9:10. So at the 9 a.m. interval, we're going to show that we had one contact received. So our ACD is going to show that we sent one contact over. At 9:15, the work's ongoing, but since we've got a zero handle time associated with it, it's going to show that I need zero staff. At 9:40, it wraps. So then at the 9:30 interval, I'm going to have one contact that was completed with a 30-minute handle time, showing I need two people here. This is where I say the art comes in and the art and science of WFM. So think of a contact center that maybe opens at 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. And we've all seen it where it's saying that I need zero people at the opening interval. And we as WFM professionals know that's not true. I need someone there to answer the call. So that's when we're putting on our art hats, less of our science hats, and manually moving schedules around. Well, what we at NICE think needs to be kind of changed is that we've introduced something called true to interval or TTI, where we've created two new fields called answered and active. So walking through this same example, at that 9 a.m. interval, we've got one contact received and now answered. So you're never going to have answered and active in the same time. So it's been answered at the 9 a.m. interval. It has a handle time associated with it now. So now I've got a 5-minute handle time. It means I need a person there. At 9:15, the bulk of the work is being performed. So I've got one active contact with a 15-minute handle time. I need one person there. And then at 9:30, when we're wrapping up, I've got one active contact with 10-minute handle time, and I need a person. So now you can see that I need one person throughout the whole interval instead of overstaffing me at the end of the interval, like the when contact in a paradigm work. So this is kind of a new way to think about doing WFM. It is very different. It is I think it is a very different mindset. It's definitely a paradigm shift in the industry, but it is something that we think as we introduce more and more digital channels, especially when you have in and out of focus time, it is definitely a way that can help solve some of those challenges. Going back to the survey, we also asked, what impacts attrition? So what are these contact centers seeing? And the number one thing was that employee workload or stress is too high. We didn't see that in the previous year. So this is the first time where we saw employee stress even being mentioned, let alone being the number one reason. And I think it kind of calls back to kind of what Juanita even mentioned about, the skill profiles. We are just, we're putting on more and more with our agents. We're asking them to literally do more with less. And sometimes they're not even the right profiles, They might have been hired to be on the billing team, and now suddenly they're being asked to do sales calls, So it's something that we need to consider when we are scheduling and hiring the right profiles. The other thing you saw is multiple secondary issues is dissatisfaction with work-life balance and also the assigned schedule. So being able to meet your employees where they want to be. So I've even been in situations where we've hired people in my past life that didn't like they literally told us in the interview that they cannot work the schedule, but that's where we wanted them. So we gave them a schedule that doesn't meet their needs. So they always called out and eventually attrited. So being able to provide that flexible scheduling and think about your employees' work-life balance, especially in today's society, it's not a nice to have. This is what majority of contact centers are doing. If you're not doing it, you have a talented pool, and there's a lot of companies that are providing these flexible scheduling. So tip number 2 is to consider cognitive load. So consider your employee's stress level. What I mean by that is consider their proficiency level amongst their skills, their ability to multitask, their ability to switch between tasks, again, back to that whack-a-mole, and and what we need to mention earlier, the topic and content. So, what are they, what are their proficiency in? How many chats can they handle at once? Are you forecasting everyone to take 3 chats at once? Or are you forecasting at the agent profile level? And you do want people to be moderately stressed. I know that's kind of an odd thing to say, but stress in and itself is not a bad thing. Again, back in my past life, one time we overstaffed so much that we actually had employees bring coloring books to work, and they would sit and color while they waited for phone calls to come in. So that was an extremely expensive way to run a business. So I would say you don't want low stress either. You don't want super low occupancy. And also people were not engaged, and we actually had high attrition too because people felt like they didn't really have a purpose. So I do think moderate stress is good. So kind of thinking again when you're doing your planning, thinking about their proficiency levels and thinking about their overall stress. And then my final tip today is really thinking about making your employees WFM partners. This is something that I'm not going to date myself too much, but when I was an agent, we were basically micromanaged to the point where we were told when we could go to the bathroom. So I do think that era has come and gone. We are past that. And when I say make employees partners, I do mean throughout the whole process. I know I've got screenshots of kind of a mobile way to do this, but I do mean before the schedules are created, get their availability, let them kind of
Mhm.
gamify it, make sure that they are being able to say when they can and can't work. Take shift preferencing into account as well. You can also do things like even up to the intraday. We actually have a customer who's going to speak at Interactions here in 2 weeks, who actually has a whole team that called a flex agents. And basically, they get their schedules every 3 weeks, and it is all by the interval. And they go and they see all of the intervals that are available, and they build their own schedules every 3 weeks. And they're always, meeting service levels because they're always with the most recent demands instead of just having a blanketed 8 to 5 shift. So again, being able to do things like that, and just even being able to self swap. So example, I was getting some dental work done when I was an agent, and I could never get to my dentist's office, within my lunch hour. So I was always over. And my manager, I was at the back office team at the time, was like, that's fine. Just, you're fine. Just stay in back office code. So I had 100% adherence and I wasn't even at the office. I was getting my teeth fixed. But, had they just let me like simply like shift swap, on those days, I would have been able to like make my hours, been there, been a good employees, but we had zero flexibility and we were also back office work. So it was very strange that it was so rigid that we had to work 7 to 4:30 every day. So again, just being able to think about, are you staffing people across the right times, and then really meeting them with your work-life balance, letting them have flexible scheduling. As I mentioned, we do have nice interactions coming up. I've got multiple customers speaking, and all of them are doing flexible scheduling in all in very different ways too. So there is a lot of ways you can do flexible scheduling that works well for your business, and can really help make an agent experience much better. And because I like to, not just say things, I do like to actually give examples. So I'm just going to end here with the fact that we do have a case study here for UK customer utility warehouse. They were able to apply a lot of these practices. They've been able to save, over 100,000 in WFM administrations. They've seen fewer absences year over year because they are meeting their agents where they want to be. So their agents are not calling out, wild philosophy, but they're working schedules that fit their work-life balance. So they're seeing fewer absences. So again, just seeing way more flexibility, and they've seen great results. They've actually also reduced their attrition by 11%. So, and also their forecast accuracy by being able to accurately do digital channels has also increased by 11%. So again, all of this stuff that I'm saying can be applied in real life, and here's a real life example. And with that, I will turn it back over to Xander.
Andrew, thank you so much. You articulate this in such a concise and easy way to understand, to be honest. I love the example with utilities warehouse as well. I mean, you're 100% right there. Give me 1 second. There we are. So I tell you what, we have 12 minutes now between this and the top of the hour. So let me quickly launch into our second poll, which we did have a couple of questions in the chat about what tool is this that you're seeing on Andrew's screen. It is a nice
Nice.
tool. If you would like a demo of the nice solution, there is a poll up now for you to register your interest in that. Andrew, what can someone expect to see from WFM demo with Nice?
Yep. So you are going to see, how we do forecasting. We can do things at the not only concurrency, but at the agent level concurrency. You'll see how we use AI best pick technology, how we do long-term planning up to 5 years with various, reverse solve planning, and then also that agent experience piece. How we can really provide different options to provide agent flexibility based on your business parameters.
Brilliant. And I'll tell you what, I'll end that poll there. And as you touched on already, Nice Interactions is coming up. The global US version is coming up in, I believe, 11 days.
11 days. Yep. In Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas, and we've got Nice Interactions International, as much as it says there, 1st and the 2nd of July. For end users, as I imagine most of our audience are, that is the 2nd of July. They've got a lot going on there. There's a huge WFM deck available as well, so there's plenty of relevance. And again, if you want to have any conversations about flexi scheduling, again, Andrea, you mentioned the US team will be there, and I believe Sue from the UK WFM team will be in Twickenham as well for that. I will also be there, as will our editor, Mega Jones. So if you do want to get on video with us talking about your CX successes, it's a great chance to do so. And, it's as close to the pitch at Twickenham as I'm ever going to get because my knees are gone at this point. So I will take advantage of that. But here we are. We've got 10 minutes. Let's crack on with some rapid fire questions and answers from our audience. Let's see how many I can fit in. Oh, let's go. So, Kate says, what flexible scheduling should you offer? Andrew, let's kick this off with you.
Yeah, so I think again it does depend on your business. So there's a couple things you could do, availability. So, during the initial interview, but also throughout because availability changes, right? So my life is I'm a mom now. I was not a mom, like 2 years ago. My life and my schedule is very different than it was 2 years ago. So making sure that you're staying current, just don't hire into a shift. We also see some people do shift bidding, not as a punishment, but as a way of motivating and kind of engaging employees. So some customers have been really successful with that, using it as a way. And then there's also that intraday flexibility, again, where you're kind of meeting your demands. And then there's shift-based preferencing. So taking people's preferences into consideration, but ultimately having the business needs drive the overall business goals. And I always say flexible scheduling, if done right, it's not releasing the floodgates, it's bowling with bumpers on, right? So you're still you still have control, but you are providing more flexibility for your staff.
We need to see your nodding there.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so, Andrea said this earlier, but I think that that's why it's so important that when agents or employees just in general are onboarded, that you get those preferences at when they're hired. Like, what are your preferences? Not saying that, you're going to necessarily work them, but you'd be so surprised how people's life shift and how they change. So when we go into organizations and they're like, oh, well, I can't do gig scheduling or the intraday scheduling, or I can't do this flexible option because our people would never work it. I'm like, when was the last time you asked? When was the last time you asked? Because people's life change and it shifts, and what was a priority 6 months ago is likely not a priority for them now. And so now that may be a priority, but they may feel stuck in the shift that they have, or you just may not know as an operations person, oh, that their life has shifted and now that is an option. So the flexible scheduling option, I think what really sets that up for success is constantly surveying your resources and finding out like, hey, what's happening in life now? What are your preferences now? What do you want to work? Those types of things.
100%. Couldn't agree more, guys. Thank you so much for that answer. Mark has asked, how would you determine importance between one queue that has the most calls but least handle times versus one that has the highest handle times but less calls? We need to take us away with this one.
Yeah, that's a really good one, right? So I think it goes back to, so if we have a queue that has a lot of calls, but the handle times are less, then generally you are going to, depending on how high the call volume is in relation to your total volume, you may need less people because the handle times are so much lower. I can handle that call much quicker. So where as a call that, yeah, have lower volume, but the handle time, it takes me 50 hours to handle the call, right? Or you're on that call. It's a tech type of call. And so or it's a sales type of call. And so longer handle times are not only happening, but they're expected, right? Like in some organizations, I want to see you on that call at minimum 20 minutes, right? If you are in a sales based role or something like that, because if you're on the call less than 20 minutes, you didn't really build rapport with the customer, right? If you're on a sales based role. So when we're thinking about prioritizing those, is like, are those the same groups of agents that are handling those calls, right? Hopefully not, right? Hopefully they're not the same agents, that's a different skill type. But if the same agents are handling these same types of calls, then we have to look at, okay, now how do we staff this more effectively? So again, I'm looking at two things. I'm looking at, is it the same group of people that's taking these calls? If this is a high queue, low handle time, because this is a service and a very basic call versus a low queue but high handle times because it's maybe a sales type of call, I'm thinking those are two different type of work groups. So I'm going to staff them accordingly. But if these same calls, right, belong to the same work group of people, then I have to get really kind of creative with, okay, how do I prioritize this? What's most important? What's my return on investment for these different call types? What is the cost to staff these queues, right? So it's a couple of different things you have to take into consideration, but those are the thoughts that I'm initially thinking when I think about doing a queue analysis and figuring out, okay, how do I pair the right queue together with the right work group?
I tell you what, the second point there I think leads into this question really nicely came in from Keith. How does WFM get its voice heard when and by whom? We're talking about ROI, as you've just talked about. I think that's a critical way of putting it into, you know what, I'll say dollars rather than pounds here because I've got you two on the call. It's putting it into real dollars when it comes to the decision makers in your contact center, right? Andrea, you must have seen this 1,000 times, like we said earlier.
Yeah, so absolutely. So it's all about, showing that ROI, showing, the cost savings. And that's why usually WFM people usually have a dedicated analyst on the team. If not, maybe the RTA teams usually send out those intraday reports, you're showing how you're doing. So that's really where you can kind of get that buy-in and showing, this is how we're performing. But even to step beyond is what Nita mentioned earlier in her presentation is becoming that strategic partner. So before, but not just after the fact, but, when the planning period is, showing them. So for example, I had a VP who wanted to add 30 minutes of training time to everyone's schedule every week. And this was an increase. We used to do 30 minutes. Sorry, he wanted to go to 90 minutes. And we
Mm.
had to show him that, like, we can certainly do that. However, you're gonna be service level and you're gonna be understaffed. And he was like, no, it's just 30 minutes per person. So being able to kind of show that strategic of like, no, this is the impact. So you need to give up, another offline activity if you want to do this. So I think that's really how you get heard is you're able to come with the data and kind of do those what if planning scenarios and you can really show the financial and service level impact to the business.
You're 100% right with the data. I mean, the examples I've seen and seen in person as well is sometimes where you can integrate in with marketing. Let's say if they're going to be running a major campaign, let them know ahead of time. Use your data as an almost as a competitive advantage within your business as well.
Yeah.
That could be so useful. I tell you what, we've got 4 minutes left. Let's rapid fire some tips out here because we haven't covered too many yet. We've got first one in from Steffi. To counter the problem of receiving a call from a queue that the agents hadn't done in a long time, a good calling platform and a link to an online knowledge base can be very efficient. Definitely when you combine all the info in a skills dash matrix. 100% agree. Andrew, I know there's talk about that coming up at interactions as well, so I won't delve into that because I know we're limited on time here. But here's another one in from Courtney. Queue analysis helped me explain that our highest queues had a higher AHD, and that was the reason I needed more agents. Again, we need to similar to what you were talking about earlier, right? 100%.
Absolutely, 1000%. Yeah, I was like, that was my amen, Courtney. That was my amen finger.
I like that. I see. And again, I don't need to reference because I know you're pointing with your finger as well. It makes it easier from my side. Here's one in from Jennifer. Utilize your QA teams to assist with skills analysis. This will help you see where abilities lies before adjusting their scaling. I mean, I love that. And I think that's a really great tip to close on before we move on to the winning tip because it combines both your presentations, right? You've got the skill analysis from what Denise was saying, and Andrew, it just links in so nicely to your presentation as well. So, with a couple of minutes to go, let me quickly wrap things up here. What did you like best about today's webinar? In one or two words in the chat, please do let us know. We love doing these webinars. We want to keep doing more of them for you. Let us know what you liked, again, in one or two words. And without further ado, here is the winning tip today, coming in from Mark. WFM training should be part of the onboarding training. Agents should have a basic framework of what WFM is about and the importance. I'm going to ask both of you about this, but let's start with you very briefly. Look, this links into what you were talking about before, right?
Yeah, I absolutely love this tip, Mark. I have a saying. I say workforce should be in everybody's business. And when I was at in operations and on the workforce management side, it was like I was in HR's business, marketing business, IT's business. I was in everybody's business, and I believe that a WFM should be a part of that agent onboarding when we're going into new hires, training, and all of those different things. It just really sets a great foundation of expectations.
And Andrea, again, from your side, you must have seen this so many times before, right? It's proving the value in it. It's getting everyone in the contact center to pull in the same direction, right?
Absolutely. And again, with the customers that we've had and the success they've had is it's showing the agents the impact they have. Like when I worked at a contact center, when I started as the WFM person, they didn't have adherence. So agents just literally were not at their desks. They were playing Nintendo Switch. So showing that making them feel like they're part of the team and like you have a critical role in this business and you have a direct impact on our service level, but also on the customers. So I think, it is critical that it's included. So great tip, Mark.
What a lovely plug for Nintendo Switch today, the second one. Well done. If anyone from Nintendo is watching, we are open to bribes at CCH. But just as we wrap up today with 1 minute to go, we will be sending you a short survey as always afterwards. It's 3 questions long, super quick and easy. Please do fill it out. It makes a world of difference when it comes to our planning sessions for what do we want to talk about next? How could we do better on our webinars? As always, replay and slides are available later today. We have our next webinar coming up on the 3rd of July, talking all about customer feedback tactics you can't overlook. It's not just good enough to do VOC surveys anymore. There's so much more you can do. So please do stop by for that one if it's of interest. But as we hit the top of the hour, all that's left from my side is to say thank you to our 2 wonderful speakers today. Juanita, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And Andrea, as always, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Cheers, guys. Enjoy the rest of your days. And again, all this will be available later to you today on demand.